Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go.
The Visibility Factor is brought to you in part by the Choose Your Life Challenge. Do you feel like it's too late to do something new? You have a good life and your basic needs are met. You have a place to live, a job that provides enough, and friends and family to share it with. But it's all passing by so quickly, and it feels like you're running out of time to do the things you wanted to do. Join Danielle McCombs and Christy Allinger, co-hosts of the Opposite of Small Talk podcast, in a 30-day interactive experience that helps you to live a more intentional life. Through a combination of live sessions, video coaching, and digital social interaction, you will be guided through a series of ideas to explore your mindset and gain confidence to live the life you want. Sign up today by visiting theoppositeofsmalltalk.com/challenge. Use promo code CHALLENGE4 for a 20% discount. That's theoppositeofsmalltalk.com/challenge and promo code CHALLENGE4.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. Happy 2023. I can't believe we are in the new year, and I'm so excited to see what this year brings. I hope you had a wonderful holiday with your families and you got to enjoy some time off and maybe watch some football, other things like that. It's one of those things that I think we don't always take time enough to spend with our families. We are just going crazy, doing all the things. So I'm hoping you get to recharge your batteries, and let's start today's episode. I wanted to spend this episode talking about 2023 and putting together a plan. I don't always think we spend enough time doing that. We just start working and doing all the things, but we don't necessarily take the time to figure out what our plan should look like and what we want to include in it. And so I'd like you to think about your visibility and what you want to do this year for visibility. I'm going to share some things with you that you may not consider when you think about visibility or goals for yourself. And I wanted to reference some things that came out of episode 43. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, Nathalie Pincham shared some things in there about the importance of doing the inner work to achieve the success you want in your life. And that's what this is about today, doing some of the inner work that you need to do to really prepare for what you want out of 2023 and potentially beyond that. If you took a moment to just think about your values and priorities, have you spent time understanding what those are for yourself? Many of my clients that I work with have never done a values exercise or really don't think about it that way, but it's something that you can do that's really helpful to kind of ground you in how you make decisions, where you're going in your life. Think of it as like a little bit of a compass that you use to really focus on what you want. And then priorities, what do you want for your family? What do you want for your life? What do you want for your career? I don't know that we always spend a ton of time on that either. And that's a good opportunity for you to sit down with your family or your significant other and really talk about that, because maybe you want different things, but you've never talked about it. And so there's this assumption that that person wants the same thing as I want or vice versa. Having that conversation can be very powerful, and it helps to create not only a plan for you, but also maybe a plan for your family. If you look at your career, how does that line up with your values and priorities? Are they aligned? Are they in the place where you want them to be? Does it help you get to what you ultimately want? If you hadn't had a chance to listen to Nathalie's episode, I'd love for you to do that, because I think it can be so impactful to think about what you are doing and what does the definition of success look like for you. And I think you might be surprised in what I talk about now. When I thought about success for myself, it was more around financial success. It was about a title that I would get. It was about, maybe things that we had, material items, for example. But I've realized over time that those things aren't the most important things, right? You only have so much time, and there are so many things that you want to do. And if you're focused only on those types of things, sometimes it doesn't really give you the inner fulfillment that you want. And so if you take some time to do the inner work, you can start to see for yourself, what does that look like? And I think it's a step that many people skip. When I teach the visibility class around the RISE process from the book, the first step of that process is to reflect. Understand why you want visibility, how you're going to measure success, and what do you want to do with it. I ask them how they're going to stay motivated when things get tough or when you get stressed out and you don't have time to focus on visibility because you're trying to get things done. The reason I ask people to do that at that step of the process is because I want them to understand what they want. If you don't know where you're going, how are you going to know if you're going to get there in the right way? So I want them to be prepared and understand that things are going to get in the way. Things are always going to get in the way of a plan. So what are you going to do to be prepared? And what's kind of your mitigation plan in case that happens? So if you think about your plan for 2023 around your career, let's focus on that first. What are you going to do in a bigger way? How are you going to be visible in a bigger way in your career? If you want a promotion, what are you going to do differently? If you want to take on more responsibility, what does that mean for you? One of the most interesting things is a lot of people will tell me that they want those things, but they haven't told anybody else. They haven't told their boss. They haven't told anyone that that's what they're interested in doing. And so what if an opportunity comes up and no one knows that you're interested in that? They're not going to be thinking about you for that. So can you start to think about it for yourself? If you want a promotion, have you done all the things you need to do to be prepared for that? Have you had the conversation to let people know you're interested? Have you shared with them the reasons that you think you're a good fit for that? Talking about the things that you're doing, the things that you've accomplished, the things that maybe you've done with your team. How can you share that in a bigger way? Because if they don't know, they're not going to think about you. What else do you need to change to align with that? Some people, I think, assume that everybody knows what they're doing and everybody sees the great work that they're doing. But maybe they've given you feedback that they haven't seen enough from you, or maybe they've given you feedback that they'd like to see more. Are you willing to take the next step to make that happen? I think the message I want to give you is each and every day you have a choice to make on what you're going to do with your life, with your career, and your time. So, for example, if you looked at your calendar right now, are you spending your time on the most important things? Are you having the most important high-value conversations that you can have? Or are you only focused on the low-value things because they're easier? The high-value things are what people are going to notice about you. That's where the visibility comes into play. And if you're not spending time on those, how can you start to do that? A lot of leaders, I think, are hesitant to delegate and give work to other people because they feel like they are the only ones who can do it and they have to do it. I would ask you to start to look at that, because if you're a leader of a team and you're not delegating to them, you're not having the amount of time that you need to be focused on those high value things, to be having those good conversations with people above you. And those are the things that are going to make a difference in how people see you. So I'm going to use an analogy here that I think might be helpful. It's using money as a guide, and someone shared this with me in another group that I'm a part of, and I thought it was just really smart. So I'm going to share this with you. I hope it gives you some ideas for yourself. So if you look at the things that you're doing and the conversations that you're having, would you say that they are worth $5, $50, $500, or $1,000? Unfortunately, many people spend their time on the $5 and $50 items versus the larger dollar amount items because it's more in their comfort zone and it's easier. They may be more comfortable with detail than strategy. They may like to accomplish things, so they focus on getting things done versus maybe strategy. And it isn't actually moving their goals and plans forward if they don't spend time on those bigger dollar, high value items. So think about that for yourself. I did this exercise with one of my clients, and I actually had him pull up his calendar and tell me absolutely every meeting he had to be at. So meetings where his boss was expecting him to be there, or meetings where, the senior leadership team was going to be there and he needed to be a part of those conversations. Those are like $1,000 items, right? Because you're getting visibility in front of the right people. You get to speak up about things that you're doing and share that with them. Versus maybe a status meeting that's for some technical thing, in his case, that he could send a team member to instead. He didn't need to be at that meeting, but it was on his calendar. So many times I think we allow people to have access to our calendar and to send meetings, and we get invited, and we don't even think about it. We just accept them. We don't even question whether we should go. We go, and we're probably not even paying attention. We're probably multitasking anyway. So why don't you think about that for yourself? Where could you spend your time in a better way? And if those meetings are crucial for you to be at, absolutely you should go. But I bet if you looked at your calendar, probably 25 to 30% of those are just meetings you're going to because they're on your calendar, not because you actually need to be there, and not because they're adding value to the conversations that you need to be having at your level, depending on what those are. So this is about creating habits that are starting to support where you want to go versus just doing the things that you've always done versus keeping busy and just operating on automatic pilot. I would love to hear how this has impacted you. For me, it was very impactful when I did it for myself and just looked at where I'm spending time and is it on the right things. And it's very easy to get caught up in this mode of just doing versus actually reflecting if it's the right place to spend your time. The other thing that you can do is to take the time to plan, either Sunday night or maybe you're a planner in the morning. If you want to plan on Monday for the week or each day. But look at what's on your calendar and really understand where that time is being spent. And if you can create space for yourself, you will be in a much better place, right? Going and working back-to-back meetings, having multiple meetings isn't helping you. And if your value is to really be in a happy place or to focus on priorities in your life, that's not going to allow you to do that. So you have to clear some space to be able to think, to be able to plan, to be able to dream. And if you don't have that in your life, then how can you get there? So now let's focus a little bit on your life. So I just mentioned dreams. Everybody has, I think, secret dreams that they never tell anyone. They have all these dreams in their life that they would love to have. For some people, that may be buying a house. For others, that may be moving to another state or going on a dream vacation or having a dream job that you don't have right now. Those are the dreams that I'd like you to think about for this section. What do you keep putting off? What are you waiting for? Are there things that you could start doing now to get there? Is your life aligned with the values and priorities that you have? It's not only about your career, this is about your life. Are you creating the life that you really want to have? And if you're not, if you don't have that now, are you willing to do something different to make it happen? I met with a client today, and he was sharing a story about going to a Christmas party, and he was with some of his colleagues and their spouses. He mentioned meeting one of the spouses of one of his colleagues who seemed to be able to make decisions freely in terms of his time. He was able to stay at a job that he loved for a long time, but when things weren't going so well, he had the choice to leave, and he took it. And my client said, I felt so envious when he talked about that, because that's not something I think I can do right now. And he had mentioned a couple other times some situations where he had felt some envy for someone who seemed to have more freedom to make choices than he did. So when I asked him to think about that, I said, well, what could you do now to start to move towards something like that for yourself, if that's what you want? And he seemed to struggle with that for just a minute. And I said, okay, what are the priorities that you and your wife have for your family? How does that align with this freedom that you'd like to create for yourself? And he said, wow, I never thought about talking about that as a family. So thinking about those things for yourself can be very impactful. I think it's important that you make sure that you're aligned with your family and what they want to do and what you want to do, and you all kind of come together, because if everybody's moving in the same direction, you can get there much faster. But if you have an idea of what you want for your retirement or your life in the future, and your spouse isn't aligned with that, or your family is not aligned with it, it's going to be a challenge at some point. There's going to be some conflict because they're not going to be aligned expectations on where you're going. So we talked about putting a plan together now, him having a conversation with his wife, sharing some ideas that he had for what he wants so that he can talk to her and understand what she wanted. I'm wondering if that's something that you could do for yourself. Having you start to talk about that opens up ideas, right? It opens up sharing information about what you could do now. How could you put a plan together for the next 5 years, 10 years, maybe longer, to get what you ultimately want? Because you don't have to wait for 20 years to do this. You can start to build actions now towards what you want. And that's what this client's going to start doing for himself. He's going to build a plan that starts to help him move towards what he wants. I think there's sometimes some fear around doing something like that because it feels big. So I want to allay that fear for you. Don't make it big and complex and have a ton of things in there, right? Just maybe pick 5 things that you're going to do this year that help you move towards actions. Just pick 5 things this year that you're going to take action on to move towards those ultimate goals that you have for yourself. And if there's more that you want to do, that's great. If you've accomplished those 5 and you want to add more to the list, you can. But I don't want it to feel complex and complicated for you because you won't do it. You'll stop yourself and say, this is too hard. I don't want to think about this. I don't have time. But I think you can do it faster than you realize. We only have so much time in our lives, and the best way that we can start to move forward is to take action. So I want you to think about what you're doing each day that is helping you to get where you want to go. If you start to take the piece of the plan that focuses on your career, and then you start taking the piece of the plan that focuses on your life and bring them back together again, do they align? Are you doing the things in both of those places of your life that help you to get where you want to go in your life? If you don't, what are you going to do differently now to make that happen? For me, last year, I put together what I call Designing a Created Life. And I want to share that quickly with you so you can understand what's possible. So for me, I looked at areas of my life where maybe things weren't going the way I wanted them to go, or where I saw myself in a negative way, or something that I wasn't doing in the best way. And I put together some statements around that would change the way I looked at it. So let's say, for example, I'm not doing enough self-care. I wanted to do more self-care. So I put some words and sentences in this created life statement that really helped me start to focus on that. And that's one of the things I'm going to be doing in 2023 is really focusing on making sure that I'm taking care of me, because I don't want to burn out. I don't want to get to a place where I'm not spending time with my family. And that's really easy to do because I love what I'm doing and I could spend all day doing it every single day. But that's not really the best thing for me health-wise. And so I put some things in my created life around taking care of myself, around what I wanted it to look like for my family, around travel that we wanted to do together. I created this statement, which is bigger than just one sentence, but created this statement so that I could start to really look at it and imagine what's possible and make it happen. Because the sooner you start to think about it and really talk about it, it starts to come into fruition, right? You start taking actions towards it. So if you can sit down and take some time to do this, you can see what's possible for you. You can get alignment with your family, and you can start to really move towards this life that you really, really want. Today's visibility action step is for you to sit down and create a couple paragraphs around what you want your created life to look like. You can do it in a very easy way. You just start documenting some of the things that are important to you. So for example, I put one down, I'll give you an example, but it has to be in present tense. That's the one caveat I will tell you. It can't be, I hope that this will happen, or I wish that this will happen. It has to be in present tense. So for example, I put something down like, I create my world and I come first. I am authentic. I am uniquely me. I am the visibility coach and an author who has written a book that will change the world. So those are just a few examples of what I put into my created life. And so when I read that, that means I'm stepping into being that person now. I'm not waiting till the future comes. I want that to happen now. And so the more you can focus on creating present statements that really show who you want to be, but you can execute that now, the sooner it will happen. So I would love to hear what everybody's doing on their created life. I would love for you to share it. I'm actually thinking about putting together a little program on doing this. So if you're interested, I would love to have you reach out and let me know that it's something of interest for you. It's a really powerful thing. I've done it with many clients, and it is life-changing. It honestly is life-changing because it's not only looking at your life in the best way, but you can look at your career, the things that you want for your future, and you put it in there and you focus on it every day. And you say it to yourself every day, and it can become the reality that you really want. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.